A few years ago, I was actually a delivery driver for Uber, and now I'm actually a private hire taxi driver for Uber as well.
Right.
And when I was doing delivery driving, it was really demoralizing. It was really difficult to work. You'd work long, long hours, and you would struggle to make enough money after you paid your insurance off for delivery and everything. It was really horrible. But then when I started driving with Uber as a private hire driver, it was really good. I was making good money.
Right.
It was really profitable. It was really easy, flexible. So so I can see where the benefits would lie with the delivery drivers. But for us as private hire drivers, I'm just a bit concerned that.
What about, we're in a pandemic. I'm sure the business isn't the same as it was. Right, so then you have 2 hours driving around and you don't get one fare. Now, under the terms of this ruling, unless Uber finds some magic way to wriggle out of it, you'll be paid the minimum wage for those 2 hours. So that's some money in your back pocket.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm really looking forward to something like that. I'm just concerned, like Uber's already today put out a message to all the drivers saying, that we this doesn't actually impact you guys. We continue as normal, and they're just gonna
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they're wrong. They're wrong. Yes, they're wrong. They're going to have to treat you as a worker, just like so. You are entitled to a range of benefits. You can have some holiday pay. You're entitled to the minimum, which is 20 days. Yeah. So that'll make a difference. What about a pension? Have you got a pension at the moment, Ilyas?
No, so I don't. So
Well, I think they might have to start paying into a pension fund for you.
yeah, and that would be really exciting for all the drivers, and it'd be great news. I just hope that the flexibility is there as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of drivers really do appreciate, and that's something that I hope they. It's like one of your speakers was mentioning earlier. Let's see how they innovate and think about doing this in a.
Oh yeah, Ilyas, Uber are very skilled. They're they're all around the world. They're fighting this in about 33 or 34 different countries. They're going to wriggle. I'm telling you, they're going to wriggle. The court ruling is the court ruling. Ilyas, good luck. Good to hear from you. That's Ilyas, an Uber driver, and we're going to carry on taking your calls because there's a lot of people want to speak about it. But we want to keep up to date also. I was talking to Frank Field earlier. He was a Labour MP for many years, but he went independent because he couldn't stand being under Jeremy Corbyn. We now have a Labour leader called Sir Keir Starmer, who appeared to be doing rather well at the beginning, but a new poll this week, extraordinary. It gave the Tories, despite the mistakes, let's face it, they made quite a few mistakes during COVID, particularly in the first months of it. We've got the highest death rate, don't forget, in Europe, and the economy has crashed. Of course, every country's economy has crashed, but there was also in the poll interesting figures about who makes the best Prime Minister. The poll was by Savanta Comres, and Chris Hopkins is their Associate Director and joins me now. Chris, evening to you. We can never read too much into a poll right now because there's not going to be a general election for 3 years or so. But if you were a Labour MP or a Labour activist, I imagine your latest offering would depress them just a little.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there seems to have been a hope within the Labour Party that simply not being Jeremy Corbyn would be enough to really sort of make a dent into the Conservative lead. And although that was true for a lot of last year, we are seeing both Westminster voting intention, and we're seeing consistent Conservative leads, and they are growing. I think the average towards the end of last year would have been about 2 points. Our latest one has 5. And like you alluded to with the best Prime Minister question, although that will always favour the incumbent Prime Minister, naturally the Prime Minister will look more prime ministerial than perhaps the leader of the opposition. I think it's the gulf that Boris Johnson appears to be opening up over Keir Starmer that's the real story, and it's one of the largest leads that we've seen Boris Johnson have in the best Prime Minister question since we started tracking this at the start of Keir Starmer's reign as Labour leader.
I guess to put it in context, of course, it's not been so easy for Keir Starmer as a new leader to engage in the usual cut and thrust of domestic politics, Chris, because everything has been revolving around the pandemic. Having said that, a lot of people think it's not been the Prime Minister, the government's finest hour in the way it's handled it, until, of course, the rollout of the vaccine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Labour have been caught, but between a rock and a hard place really here, because in the research that they've conducted themselves, and similarly, what pollsters have done, and what we've found in our own research is that the public don't really want an opposition to be seem to be at odds with the government during a time of national crisis, and they don't want them to be opposing everything. It's been hard for Keir Starmer to kind of carve out a bit of a niche, and equally, as you say. At this stage of an electoral cycle, you're not going to be expecting reams and reams of new policy from an opposition party. So it has been difficult for them to carve out a bit of a niche. But obviously, in the questions that we're asking in a survey, who would you vote for if there is a general election tomorrow? And obviously, the Conservatives returned a massive majority at the last election, and all of those voters that they won over from the Labour Party, away from Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, if they're going back to the polls tomorrow, why would they vote for Labour again? Who's going to? How are they being convinced to vote for the Labour Party? Because if Keir Starmer is doing what he's currently doing, it doesn't look very different to what the government are doing.
And just finally on that, Chris, there was a big speech by Sir Keir Starmer yesterday, online of course, it had to be, but so you watched it on Zoom or whatever. It had been heavily trailed by his own office as a significant speech which would set out dividing lines between Labour and the Conservatives for the next decade. There was even rather excitable talk, in my view, that this would be on a par with the beverage reforms. Now, the beverage reforms, of course, came under Clement Attlee. That created the welfare state and the NHS. But actually, even people on the left are saying the speech was an utter damp squib.
Yeah, I think it definitely wasn't what it was trailed to be, and I doubt it's going to have had a lot cut through to the public at large. I think looking at the speech with kind of the Politico hat on, I think it was a start for Keir Starmer, but I don't think it's going to be enough to convince those that abandoned the Labour Party at the last election to come back. And I think much is to be done, but I think there were some encouraging undertones, some encouraging signs about some of the things that he may be looking to do. But I think Keir Starmer's got a real task on his hands, not only to differentiate himself from the previous Labour leader, but also from Labour leaders gone by, including Ed Miliband, who wasn't very electorally successful, and also he has to differentiate himself from Boris Johnson at the same time. And considering that those three men are all quite different, it's going to be no mean feat to really allow the voter to understand what Keir Starmer's Labour Party stands for.
All right, that's Chris Hopkins, who's Associate Director of Savanta Comrades. Just to remind you, so that poll lead put the Tories on, astonishing really, when they've been in power for 11 years, 43% to Labour's 37%. Johnson way ahead as who makes the best Prime Minister, 16% ahead of Sir Keir Starmer. Now, coming up, we'll carry on taking your calls on Uber. Uber had suffered a huge, well, it's not just a setback, they've lost game, set a match in the Supreme Court today. The drivers are not self-employed any longer. They are workers and are entitled to a raft of benefits as workers would imagine, which would include things like holiday pay, sick pay, minimum wage, also pensions. I'm sure that would be included too. If you're in this gig economy, if you're an Uber driver, I want to hear from you. And also, after the break, we'll be going to one part of the United Kingdom which says it's going to, the youngest pupils will return to school on Monday. I'm not going to tell you which bit of it is, which part of the UK it is, but it isn't England. I'm Andrew Pearce, it's LBC. The time is now 6:30 on Friday evening. Headlines, Tim Humphrey.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have confirmed they're permanently stepping down as working royals. The Queen's told them they will have to hand back their military and Commonwealth titles and other patronages. Uber has lost its case in the Supreme Court to class its drivers as third-party contractors. The ruling means staff must be considered workers, entitled to holiday pay and the minimum wage. The High Court has ruled the government acted unlawfully by not publishing full details when it awarded pandemic-related contracts. A campaign group and 3 opposition MPs sued the Department for Health for what they called a dismal failure to disclose vital information. And the weather, rain turning heavier across hills in the west before easing for a time tonight, but it will return to the southwest later, a low of 4.
The fight against COVID-19, Britain's road to recovery.
I just want to know when I'll be able to hug my mum.
Will we be able to go abroad?
I'll let you know when I can play five-a-side football again.
As the Prime Minister plans to ease lockdown, what are the questions you want answering?
What assurances are there that this is the last time, that we won't go into another lockdown.
Can I get a haircut?
I need to get back to work as soon as possible.
When will I get to go back to school and see my friends and teachers?
Will I be able to open my shop by Easter?
When can I get back to the office?
This Monday, stay with LBC for the UK government's plan to begin restarting the economy.
We'll be hearing your views, clubs, beer gardens, bringing back Boris, and getting your reaction. Don't miss a moment. All day, Monday, on LBC.
The ultra-low emission zone is expanding from central London up to the North Circular and down to the South Circular roads in October 2021 to help clean up London's air. If you drive an old or polluting vehicle, you could be affected if you're heading
Out west to West Acton,
east to India Docks
north to Stoke Newington.
or down south to Southwark. Check your vehicle. Search ULEZ 2021. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Mercedes-Benz may have to pay thousands of pounds to drivers after they allegedly installed defeat devices to pass vehicle emissions tests. Did you purchase or lease a Mercedes diesel vehicle made between 2009 and 2018? Then you could be entitled to thousands of pounds in compensation, even if you no longer own or lease the car. To find out if you qualify and join the claim, visit mercedes-emissionsclaim.co.uk or text JOIN to 85222.
Where can you find out the value of your current home before you start searching for a new one? Now you can find out what your home's worth in an instant at onthemarket.com. Enter your postcode now for your free online valuation estimate. And find out what your home is worth today. Now with free instant online home valuation estimates. Most common time to obtain an online quote between the 1st and the 4th of December 2020 was under 3 minutes. Not available in Scotland and Northern Ireland.
You serve, you backhand, you topspin, you get your phone out. Multitasking, you switch energy. You switch customers have their energy usage saved, so you can switch in as little as one click. What you do while you switch, well, it's up to you. You game, set and match.
Visit uswitch.com now to switch in as little as one click. Uswitch, energy, broadband, mobiles. I'm a nurse, and I know a lot of people have questions about the coronavirus vaccine. They want to feel confident that it's safe. Although it's been developed quickly, it has passed all the same safety checks as other medicines, and millions of people in this country have now had it. It is safe, and it will protect you from getting seriously ill with COVID. So I urge you, do what I've done. Say yes to the vaccine when it's your turn, and encourage your family to do the same. This is an advert on behalf of the Mayor of London.
So, let's talk about you. Actually, let's talk about me, just for a bit, because I was like you. In 40 odd years, I hadn't done much exercise, but I knew I had to start. So, I got the couch to 5k app, and not being able to run for more than a minute, 9 weeks later, I was running for half an hour. It's simple, it's free, and it's all planned out. With a little support, it's amazing what your body can do. Join thousands of monthly users. Download the free 1U couch to 5k app now, because there's only 1U.
Another appears on LBC.
We're talking about Uber, and we're going to get Carol to calls. I'm going to get Asa who's calling from Berlin. Asa, what do you make of this? Are you an Uber driver? Oh, you're very welcome. Afra, okay. So what's your reaction? Are you pleased, worried, nervous?
I've been driving Uber for a year and a half now. I worked working as a cabin crew with Air Canada, and I got laid off because of COVID. And so obviously I used to do this on a part-time basis, but it was like a weekend thing. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was pretty hard for me to make with income. Obviously with the pandemic and then losing my job, this has become more of a full-time. I think one bit that does will affect me, and I am quite worried, is the fact that the flexibility, because at the moment I am a lot, I'm not able to drop my kids to school.
fascinating, Afra. Thank you for that. And if you were nervous, you didn't sound it. First time caller to LBC, very welcome. We'll carry on with that conversation. But first, and the conversation is that Uber have been lost game, set and match in the Supreme Court, saying that's the highest court in the land. No longer can they regard their drivers as self-employed. They are to be treated as workers. But you can see already some Uber drivers are worried this may not affect them because they fear it's going to reduce the flexibility which you have if you are a 0 hours on a 0 hours contract. Now, Frank Fielder, I was talking to earlier, Lordfield was saying that's only a small percentage. I'm not sure he's right. Maybe there's many more people working in the gig economy who like the flexibility of 0 hours contract. Do call. You could be working now. You will not, if you're a bar worker, bad luck because there's no bar work. But in general, if that's something that suits you, you're a student, maybe you're a working mum and working dad, trying to juggle the kids as well, do let me know. 0345 6060 973. Let's go to Manesh, who's calling from Hounslow. Hello, Manesh.
Hello there.
What do you think?
I think the court has got it completely wrong this time. I think they're bound down to pressure. They haven't thought it through, and I don't believe they're qualified to actually look at the industry analysis, to actually look at how this industry operates. And you can't just put one type of fixed term hourly rate on an industry that is variable and it's got so many dependents on it. For example, traffic, for example, who's paying for the petrol, who's insuring the car. If you're paying £7, £80 an hour to drive from London to Newcastle and back with no traffic, you're going to end up losing money. Now, I don't think this is the correct way of dealing with this issue.
But what the court was saying is that in this day and age, Manesh, this company is exploiting 45,000 odd drivers in this country by not giving them sick pay, not giving them holiday pay, not paying them a minimum wage if they're in a car for 3 hours and they've got no work, and that is not acceptable. I mean, what do you say to that?
Well, my argument to that is I've taken, during this pandemic, I've taken so many Uber drives and so many taxi drives, and on speaking with the taxi drivers, they're making far more than what your previous callers are saying, and a lot of them are saying that during not busy periods, they're actually on 4 or 5 different apps, so they're not just reliant on one particular app.
What do you mean they're not just working for Uber?
No, they've got 4 or 5 apps on their phone and they're working from. It's not like that. If you're going to assume that, but look at the devil behind the question. If this is now to be true, put yourself in a private company that has to justify costs and make a viable business work. If I was the boss of Uber and I have to pay every physical driver minimum wage for every hour on there, the first thing I would do is, okay, you're not driving a passenger, you're going to drop off food. Okay, there's no food, I'm going to do a deal with TNT or DPL or UPS, you're going to deliver a parcel. I'm going to exploit every minute of your hourly wage, which I'm paying you. So is that the road we want to go down? Then the people become slaves again.
All right, Manesh, well, that's an interesting take on that. So you'd have thought this Uber ruling by the Supreme Court would be welcomed overwhelmingly, but a lot of people raising their objections to it. What's your view? I have to put my cards on the table. I've never had an Uber car. I've been in an Uber car once or twice. I'm afraid I'm old-fashioned. Tube, bus, walk, or black cab. They've done the knowledge, they've done the work, they've got the experience, and I think it's universally much safer. Now, we'll carry on talking about Uber, but first, in Wales, the First Minister, Mark Drakeford, says he doesn't think life will return to normal this year. What is he, Einstein? Heaven's sake, what an extraordinary thing. He's extended lockdown restrictions for another week because he thinks there'll be a third wave of COVID in the autumn. LBC's reporter in Wales, Daniel Bevan, has the latest from Cardiff.
One final push to get the number of cases down and restore freedoms. That's the message coming from the Welsh Government in the latest lockdown review. In the immediate, there will be some slight changes to restrictions. For example, the number of people who you can exercise outdoors with is rising from 2 to 4. And as we already knew, pupils aged between 3 and 7 will be allowed to go back to face-to-face teaching from Monday. There's also a hope that in 3 weeks' time, all primary school pupils can return to school. Now, the First Minister, Mark Drakeford, also hinted about what we might see during the next 2 reviews.
Next 6 weeks, our priorities will continue to be children and education,
whether it's possible to reopen some non-essential retail, if there is any prospect of even a modest resumption in the tourism industry.
There's also the possibility that the next 3 weeks will be the last under strict stay-at-home laws. But the First Minister has said the hospitality industry is unlikely to open anytime soon. And that's got ramifications for Natalie Isaac, who owns Bar 44 in Cowbridge in South Wales. She's taken the difficult decision to close the restaurant for good after 20 years of trading, because the restrictions have meant that she's not been able to open since March. It's quite a small restaurant, only around 11 seats, and in Wales we don't have a 1 metre plus rule like they do in England. Natalie thinks that if we did, then perhaps the business might have survived.
We would have been in with more of a chance. What I'm worried that we're losing sight of slightly is that it seems like the 2 metre rule is almost the new normal, and in reality we are all paying rent on business rates when they come back on buildings based on a 0 metre social distancing.
The First Minister hasn't ruled out bringing in a 1 metre plus policy down the line, but insisted that there will need to be some restrictions in place for at least the rest of the year.
We're going to be living with coronavirus one way or another throughout the rest of this calendar year, and that means there will be some adaptations, even in the best of circumstances. There will be some adaptations we will all continue to have to make.
Of course, the real glimmer of hope for ending restrictions is the vaccine rollout. In Wales, the latest figures say that 1/3 of adults have now been given their first jab against the virus.
That was Daniel Bevan, LBC's reporter in Cardiff, so they will be the first in the UK. I know in Scotland too, some of the kids are going back to school on Monday, and in Wales too. In England, the plan is for March the 8th. We will see soon of whether everyone is going back on March the 8th or whether it's going to be staggered. I suspect that might be the case. We'll carry on now with the headlines with Tim Humphrey, because the time is 6:45.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have told the Queen they won't be returning to be working members of the royal family. Judges have ruled Uber drivers should be treated as workers, not third-party contractors, which means getting access to things like holiday pay and minimum wage. The latest official data suggests the spread of coronavirus in the UK is still slowing down. The weather, rain turning heavier across hills in the west before easing for a time tonight, but it will return to the southwest later, a low of 4.
LBC Travel, I'm Katie Tyler. It's crawling on the M25 clockwise from junction 15 for the M4 towards 16 for the M40 because of an accident. And on the M4 itself, there are queues eastbound towards junction 3 for Hayes after an accident too. Stop-start on the Marylebone Road, that's westbound heading towards Baker Street Station because of emergency repairs. And it's slow in Northolt on Church Road towards the Target roundabout because the lane is shut for repairs too. If you need to use the tubes, the Hammersmith and City Line has severe delays.
This is LBC. That's Emma, winning the BP Fuel Your Year daily prize draw. There's a whopping £2,000 worth of points up for grabs every day to redeem on BP Fuel or at Amazon, Virgin Wines, M&S and more. Just use your BP Me Rewards card or BP Me app in store to be entered.
Oh, that's all my food shopping sorted at M&S for a while.
BP Me Rewards. Little rewards, more often. Offer ends 2nd of March 2021. Daily prize draw of 400,000 points, no cash alternative. BP Me Rewards customers only. For full terms and conditions, go to bpmerewards.co.uk.
What am I saving for? My passion. Food photography.
I'd train to be a landscape garden designer.
Open a food store and sell my famous fish tacos.
I'd go to stuntman school.
I'd be a wedding planner. I'd start a dog grooming business. Sorry, we'd start a dog grooming business.
What are you waiting for? Make your one day happen with a Fidelity Stocks and Shares ISA. Your capital is at risk. Tax rules may change. Full terms for stocks and shares ISA are available on our website. 18 plus UK residents.
Okay, listen up. We're going for a high press. If their wingbacks start to dominate, revert to a midfield diamond.
Unfortunately, Pension B can't make you football coach confident, but we can transfer most of pensions together into one simple online plan. So all your retirement savings are invested in one place for easy management.
I said midfield diamond!
Pete, they're only 5. Be pension confident. Download the app or visit pensionb.com to sign up.
Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Capital at risk.
Where can you find out the value of your current home before you start searching for a new one? Now you can find out what your home's worth in an instant at onthemarket.com. Enter your postcode now for your free online valuation estimate. And find out what your home is worth today. Now with free instant online home valuation estimate.
last on the 4th of December 2020 was under 3 minutes. Not available in Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Jimmy's finest steak for 2.
Me and Dad share all the cooking now. Since he and Mum went their separate ways. So I'll pop into Tesco, grab a couple of their finest steaks, sprinkle in the thyme, splash of olive oil, and pan frying. Oh, I'm cooking tea for 2, alright. But tonight is for me dad and his date. And usually we'd add garlic, but I'll skip that this time, if you know what I mean.
Make any evening special with Tesco finest 30-day matured British sirloin steaks. Food love stories brought to you by Tesco.
Get your free credit score and the help you need to improve it with our app. Plus, discover loans, credit cards and other deals you could be eligible for. We're here to help you smash your money goals and make your credit score work for you. Credability with an A. Download the app today. Credibility is a credit broker working with a panel of lenders. T's and C's apply. 18+.
Andrew Pierce on LPC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Let's carry on taking the calls. We're talking about Uber losing in the Supreme Court. That's it. There's nowhere for them to go now. They will have to treat their drivers as workers, not self-employed. Good news, is it? If you work for Uber, if you work in the gig economy, they will have far-reaching implications for other workers, I imagine. Anshuk is calling from Camden in North London. Hello, good evening. What do you think?
Hello, Andrew.
What do you think, Anshuk?
Hello, Andrew. I was saying, sorry, but I was...
Don't be nervous. You just think about chatting in your car with one of your customers.
Yes, I am. Thank you. I was saying I'm really happy with the Motorway. I've been driving with for 4 years now, and really feel I have respect in terms of doing a job that I really like to do. Uber's not treated us really well throughout all these 4 years. It's been same fares, or even low fares now. The prices have gone up throughout. Our expenses have gone up, but the fares still remain the same.
Yeah, and has your business tailed off because of COVID?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We've had really 20% of work that we get nowadays. So it's really difficult. Uber is only concerned about more the app is downloaded by the customers. More people download the app is more beneficial for them.
Yeah.
And more people like me get on board working for Uber. That's what they want. If something happens to me, or if I get tired working with Uber like I've done for 4 years, I might log off the app and somebody new might come up and take my work.
Right.
So the exploitation continues and it goes on and on.
What could I ask you? What would you expect, particularly during this COVID period? So, what would you expect to be earning? What are you earning roughly in a week?
Oh, I would. From now, I started 8 o'clock in the morning, and till now I've done £60.
That's it.
And I'm still on now.